Today's video is another compilation of 5 of my favorite quote-unquote emergency meals, and I made sure that these recipes were simple ones, they're easy to prepare, like something you would actually want to make in a stressful type situation. Now, everyone has a different definition of what qualifies as an emergency for them. These 5 meals are ones that you can prep in advance, and then they can just be sitting on your pantry shelf, ready and waiting for you for whenever you might need them. I mean, the last thing you need in a stressful situation is to make a meal that you can just barely get down. You need something delicious to help lift your spirits, something that's nutritious and filling, and these 5 meals definitely fit the bill. I've got a spinach and chicken pasta meal that's one of my husband's favorites, and he doesn't even like green things. My spicy jambalaya is a delight to the taste buds. It's packed full of Cajun flavors. I'm telling you, these meals are so good, you might want to just put them in your regular rotation. I've got a Philly cheesesteak casserole that will for sure keep you full. It's great over noodles or even served as a sandwich. My mom's Italian chicken stew is chock full of vegetables and beans and pasta, just such a tasty stew. And finally, I'll show you how to assemble a Supper Helper jar that you can combine with any canned meat for a super quick supper. Okay, I hope you enjoy these recipes for emergency meals that actually taste good. Welcome to the Freeze Dried Foodie. My name's Kareth. Here you'll find delicious recipes that feature freeze-dried ingredients. Now, I use a lot of Thrivalist, but they've gone out of business and you can use other brands in my recipes. Lots of us have food stores that we need to know how to cook with. On this channel, I'll show you how I cook with mine. All right, to start us off, I've got a creamy chicken and spinach pasta meal in a jar. This one is so yummy. You're gonna see a lot of the Thrivalist cans in my recipes, but don't fret. I have copycat recipes for all of their sauce mixes, and you can also use other brands of freeze-dried food, just so it's a good quality and they taste good. The sauce ingredients in this recipe are so yummy. It's actually a combination of a type of Alfredo sauce from a different recipe and my tomato sauce, and those two combined together are wonderful. Of course, we've got chicken, some garlic, some yummy seasonings. The pasta I'm going to use in this recipe is actually linguine. I'll be adding spinach to this, but it's completely up to you what veggie you want to add. Kale, broccoli, zucchini. This is going to yield somewhere between 3 and 4 servings, kind of depends on how big your servings are, but you'll want to put this in a quart-sized jar, and all I did was break that linguine in half. That's about 6 ounces of linguine. The recipe actually calls for 7. I just ran out. But when you make this, you probably would want to put about 7, so you get a full 4 servings out of this. And then in between the gaps and spaces of that linguine, I'm going to go ahead and put some powders. So this is my tomato sauce. You can use the one from Thrivalist, and if you don't have it, don't worry. I've got a knockoff recipe or a copycat recipe on my channel, and I'll link to that below. That's what I put in there. I actually keep it in the freezer in order to make sure it's not clumpy. And then in goes a good amount of heavy cream powder. That's just part of that kind of Alfredo sauce that I told you about. I have heavy cream powder, bechamel sauce, butter powder, and Parmesan that's going to go in here to make that Alfredo sauce. And go ahead and tap it down and it'll settle down, and make some room to add your chicken. Now the chicken I'm adding here is just what I had left over from that, I think it's called pulled chicken. It's from Freeze Dry Wholesalers. And so anyway, you can use whatever kind of freeze-dried chicken you like. In fact, my original recipe calls for either grilled chicken dices or chicken slices. So just kind of put it all around that linguine, and you should have plenty of room for all of these ingredients in there if you get them to settle down in there. So we'll go ahead and add some butter powder. This butter powder is going to give the sauce a nice richness. I really like the flavor of the butter powder. It doesn't really have as much fat as you need in an Alfredo sauce, so that's why I also add the heavy cream powder and the bechamel. And once again, don't worry if you don't have that Thrivalist brand of the bechamel, because I have a copycat recipe on my channel and I'll link to that below. So go ahead and add those powders and give your jar a good tap, 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 and let those things kind of settle down. And we'll add some more solid things. Now this right here is the last of my Thrivalist freeze-dried green onions. If you don't have them, just use the white chopped onions, or you could use the Lighthouse brand of chives. And then I've got some freeze-dried garlic gonna go in here. And then I'll add some other seasonings and some herbs. This freeze-dried parsley from Lighthouse brand is really great. I like the freshness that their herbs bring. And I like to add a little bit of heat here. So just a dash or two of red pepper flakes. And this right here, this is Cajun seasoning. And you might think, I don't want my chicken and spinach to taste like Cajun, but let me tell you, it's so good, and it's only a teaspoon of that seasoning, so it's not enough for it to take over the dish. I don't even know that you would identify that as being a Cajun seasoning in the end. It just brings a lot of flavor, and it's so good. I use the Cajun two-step. You can use whatever brand you like, but I highly recommend a teaspoon of the Cajun seasoning. And then I also added some salt and pepper. And now it's time for the freeze-dried spinach. Now I just opened that can, and this is what mine looks like. It's like in these little clumps or these little chunks of spinach. And it's actually quite concentrated, so you don't need a lot of it here, but you might have to push it down in order to make room for the Parmesan cheese that's gonna come next. So that is the freeze-dried Parmesan cheese, and I'm gonna fit about half a cup of that in the top here. Since I only had 6 ounces of linguine in my jar, you'll notice that at the top here, I actually have extra room, but I don't think you will if you get a full 7 or 8 ounces of linguine in your jar. It should be full to the rafters. Here is your jar that you could keep stored on your pantry shelf. And the idea here is make this once, like try it out, see if you like it. And if you like it, then you can go ahead and make 3 or 4 of them at once, and it will end up saving you time in the end. Whenever you're ready to make this, you'll need to get out a large soup pot or a Dutch oven or something like that, something that can fit a good amount of food in it. I actually have out my largest pot, which is actually way too big for this, but my Dutch oven has gone missing, and this is all I had to cook it in. So anyway, in goes 6 cups of water. And like I said earlier, this is a just add water recipe. That's all you have to do is add water to it. And then what you want to do is just kind of make sure that the sauce powders are getting mixed in with that water, and then get some heat going. And as this heats up, it'll be a lot easier to stir. You just need to stir it a couple times and be really gentle, because at this point, the pasta is really brittle. You'll want to bring this up to a boil. So I think I had it on about a medium-high heat until it started to bubble. And you will need to come and stir this every once in a while, because it'll tend to stick on you. But once you get it to a boil, you can turn down your heat, and you'll need to be at probably in between a medium low and a medium, somewhere around a 3.5 or a 4 out of 10 on my stove is where I ended up. And then I just let this simmer away and bubble away for about 15 minutes. But I did have to come along every 4 or 5 minutes or so and stir it from the bottom. Reason being, you've got Parmesan cheese in there, and you've got that pasta in there, and that will tend to stick on you. So be sure and stir it from the bottom every once in a while. And then after about 15 minutes or so, it should be nice and tender. You'll notice it will thicken, and of course your pasta will be pliable. At this point, I think it has been simmering for about 15 minutes. And remember, I didn't have quite as much pasta as the recipe calls for. So it might look to you like, oh, that looks more like soup. But I think yours is gonna be thicker than mine. It'll just have more pasta in there. Now's a good time to taste test and adjust your seasonings. I added just a pinch of salt and a little bit of cracked black pepper. The flavor is fantastic. Go ahead and get a fork in there and taste test those linguine noodles. Just make sure they're good and tender, and mine were. You can pull this off and let it stand for about 5 minutes, and as you do that, the sauce will thicken. And then you can serve it up. I like to top this with a little bit of fresh parsley as well as some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. But isn't that just gorgeous? And y'all, let me tell you, my kitchen smelled amazing. I really like hiding vegetables in my pasta dishes. Now, I know this isn't exactly hidden. You can see the spinach, but it's not so much that it overpowers the dish. Since I'm married to someone who doesn't really think he likes green things, it's a really nice dish to put just some spinach in. He'll get a little bit of green stuff. He just won't hardly notice it. And here are some options if you don't like spinach. I think kale would be great in here, or freeze-dried broccoli. You could do freeze-dried zucchini. It'll work with any kind of freeze-dried chicken like the dices or the slices. I prefer those actually to the pulled chicken that I put in here, but it's up to you because it's all good. All right, up next, I've got a yummy Cajun-style jambalaya recipe, and this is one that my mom used to make for us when we lived in Louisiana. Jambalaya is a rice dish, and it's loaded with meat. There are a few vegetables in here, but it's mostly meat and rice, and it is pretty spicy, just FYI. You can always cut down on the Cajun spices, but it's meant to be spicy. That's just what jambalaya is. Now, I'm going to be putting 3 different types of freeze-dried meat in here. I've got chicken slices, freeze-dried sausage crumbles, and freeze-dried pulled pork. I like including that, but y'all, food safety is very important, and you have to be comfortable with putting that into a meal in a jar. I'm comfortable with it with an oxygen absorber, but you make up your own mind about that. Some people like to hold off and not add the pulled pork to the jar because Thrivalist had always said, like, use it within a couple of weeks. So if you want to wait, you can hold off on adding that pulled pork until you are making the dish, until you're putting it on the stovetop. Or of course, you might just leave it out altogether and use only the chicken and the sausage. Start with a quart-sized jar if you want 3 or 4 servings. These are going to be good-sized servings. If you don't need that much food, just cut all of these ingredients in half and put this in a pint-sized jar. I've got a cup of uncooked medium grain rice. You could use long grain, just so it's not instant. Don't use that. It'll just be complete mush on you. Now I'm going to put that pulled pork in there next, and I'm going to add chicken and some sausage crumbles that I have pulsed in the blender. So I've got 3 kinds of meat in here. It's so good with a lot of meat, but you could really do any kind of combination of meat in here. If you don't want to put the chicken, just leave out the chicken, add more sausage or whatever. 1/3 of a cup of green bell peppers is going to go in next, and I did snap those in half just to fit more in there. I like to crush my celery, not only because you can fit more in, but also because my husband thinks he doesn't like it. And then I'm putting in some onions. I've got freeze-dried garlic and some green onions. And if you don't have those green onions, because I know Thrive isn't making those anymore, you can use the Lighthouse brand or just leave them out altogether. All right, we need Cajun seasoning, people. And I've got 3 different kinds. I've got 2 spicy Cajun seasonings. One is called Cajun Two-Step. One is that Tony's. And then some Trinity Shake. It's powdered onion, bell pepper, and celery. And then some delicious seasonings. Chicken bouillon, paprika, salt and pepper. The bay leaves are going to go in. And then you can add an oxygen absorber. Like I said, make sure it's fresh, or just use it within 2 weeks if you want to abide by the Thrive Life recommendations on the can. So here's the jar that you could keep stored for a couple of weeks on your pantry shelf. Or you could assemble every other ingredient, leave out the pulled pork, and then just add it at the last minute. All right, you'll need a large heavy-bottomed pot. I'm using my Dutch oven here. I just love my Dutch oven. I will link to that below. And then into the pot goes about 1/4 of a cup of some neutral type of oil. Heat that up really good, and then add the contents of the jar. Be sure to remove your bay leaves. We'll add those later. Then in goes the contents of the jar, and you're going to toast those seasonings. That's what you're doing here. You're toasting the seasonings in that hot oil, and you're going to be coating all of those rice grains in the oil and the seasoning. And this step right here is going to make your jambalaya taste amazing, okay? But you can't go too long because That's freeze-dried ingredients, and it will burn on you. So add about a cup and a half of water, and all that's going to do really is hydrate those vegetables so they won't burn. And then you're going to saute some more. Okay, so cook off that water. This is probably on about medium heat. Cook off that water, and then eventually all that water is going to evaporate, and you're going to start to develop some fond in the bottom of your pot. This is why you need a heavy bottom pot. Now, see that amount of fond there? That's great, but we want to take it further. Scrape that up, get that into your dish. I probably let this go about 5 minutes. Now that fond, that's what you're looking for. You want a good dark brown fond and a lot of it. And I took it to where I couldn't really scrape it up anymore. It was sticking really good to the bottom of my pot. That's just what I'm looking for. And we're going to bring that up when we add liquid. What you want to do at this point is add 3.5 to 4 cups of water. I like to add 4 because I like a little bit of extra sauce at the end. Then you start to stir, and that fond will release off the bottom of your pot. You want to bring that up into your jambalaya. That is flavor, right? Browned bits and fond, that is flavor. And we definitely want that in our jambalaya. Now you can add those bay leaves and bring that to a boil. And then you're going to reduce the heat, cover it, and let it simmer for about 25 minutes, covered on low heat, all the way down to low. Don't peek, guys, no peeking. That rice needs to steam and cook. All right, after 25 minutes, this is what it looks like. And watch out for that steam because, yeah, that'll burn you. So see how the meat has floated to the top and the vegetables too? That's just fine. You can stir it all in. All of that meat should be completely hydrated at this point. It should be nice and tender. The rice should be cooked through, of course, the vegetables as well. You can remove those bay leaves, fish those bay leaves out of there. Give it a taste. And really what you're making sure is that the pork is completely rehydrated, which it should be, and that your rice is cooked all the way through. All right, mine was perfect. I didn't add anything to it. Everything is nice and tender, and it's ready to plate up. I like to top this with some fresh scallions and a little bit of Louisiana hot sauce just to add a little extra spice, kick it up another notch. This dish is definitely spicy, and it's supposed to be. This is a Cajun dish. It's supposed to be spicy. So if spice is not your thing, then maybe you should skip this one. But gosh, I think it's amazing. I love the pulled pork in here. When we made this back in Louisiana, my mom always put some sort of pork shoulder or something in there, and it just gives it great flavor. And the Thrivalist pulled pork is so tender and so delicious. It goes really, really well in here. All right, that right there, that's a perfect bite. I've got rice in there, some green pepper, some vegetables. All of those seasonings are amazing. I wanted to show you just what the pulled pork looks like on the interior, just in case you haven't ever opened up a can and cooked any. This is what that looks like. It's legitimately tender, fall apart pulled pork, and it just goes so well in this dish. I think jambalaya is best with a ton of meat in it. The sausage crumbles that we put in here, they almost melt all the way through the entire dish, but I love it in here. The sausage has great flavor. I think if you can fit more of it in there, fit more. It's so, so good. Jambalaya is definitely one of our family favorites. All right, up next, I've got a Philly cheesesteak casserole meal in a jar, and you can make this with freeze-dried beef dices or freeze-dried ground beef. I'll talk about how you can adapt this to serve it on a toasted roll for like a sandwich, and I'll also give you a few options for keeping this low carb if that's what you're looking for. Philly cheesesteak is actually not something I grew up eating really, but this recipe is adapted from something I had at a potluck. I thought it was delicious. She actually used ground beef, So I'm going to include lots of cheese, plenty of veggies like peppers and onions, but I don't have the right type of meat to make this very authentic. I mean, I don't have shaved ribeye, but I do have these steak bites, and they get very tender in the cooking process. So hopefully you'll get the flavors of a Philly cheesesteak, maybe not the same textures, but this really is a yummy recipe. Let me show you how I put it together. I'll start with a quart-sized jar. This will give you 3 large servings. And in the bottom of the jar, you're going to need 1.5 cups of the diced beef. And like I said, you could probably use ground beef for this. That's what she used in her casserole recipe. But I like the diced beef here. And into that, I'm going to put 1/4 cup of the cream cheese powder, and I kind of shook it to get it settled down in the spaces and fill up the gaps. Now I'm adding both colors of bell peppers as well as mushrooms and sliced onions. Now that's just what I like. You could use any or all of those vegetables and in any proportions just so they fit in your jar. Now I am including some mozzarella so the sauce would be extra cheesy, and I did blend it, but just so it would fit in the jar better. This is kind of a tight fit, so every once in a while you might have to pat it down or smush it down. All right, these 2 sauce powders are very yummy. I'm including the cheese sauce powder because I know some Philly cheesesteak is served like with cheese whiz or American cheese, and then the Espanol sauce powder, that's just going to really give you a yummy gravy, and it'll help thicken up the sauce. I am going to include some butter powder here because cheesesteaks are usually fried on a flat top in oil, and I think without that being present, you might miss that flavor, so I'm adding the butter. As far as seasonings go, I think this combination is going to give you a really yummy Philly cheesesteak-like experience, especially the Worcestershire sauce powder. Now, if you don't have the powder, you could always add the liquid in when you make this. But a little bit of garlic powder, some salt and pepper, a pinch of cayenne is going to help kind of round out the flavor. It doesn't really make it spicy, but it is really good in there. And then that's all there is to this jar. You can add an oxygen absorber in there. And then if you're going to store this for the long term, be sure to wipe your rim, get a really good seal there. But I'm not going to store this. I'm going to make this for y'all in just a minute. So this is the jar that you would store on your pantry shelf. And the idea here is if you make this and you like it, then you can prep 3 or 4 of these at a time and just have them ready and waiting for you. All right, when you're ready to make this, you'll just get out a large skillet or a large pot, something that has a lid. And you'll want to empty the contents of the jar into the skillet and then add water. And that's all there is to this. If you know you're just going to make sandwiches, then stick with 3.5 cups of water. If you think you're going to put this over something else like buttered noodles or mashed potatoes or cauli rice or cauli mash, something like that, go ahead and add 4 cups of water. And you're just going to stir that really well. Turn your heat to probably medium-high because you want to bring this up to a boil. And every once in a while, just come along and stir it. Make sure it's not sticking to the bottom. And once you reach a boil, you can reduce your heat down to probably about a medium because you want to simmer this for about 20 to 25 minutes. And you'll notice the longer you cook this, the darker the sauce will get and the thicker it will get. Now's a good time to put on those egg noodles if you're wanting to serve this over noodles. Or you can actually cook the noodles in the casserole. Add 1.5 cups of noodles, extra water, cook them in the dish. It's very good. All right, now I cooked mine for about 25 minutes, and that's just how long it took for my sauce to thicken and for the beef dices to get good and tender. You'll want to give this a taste. Be sure to adjust the seasonings. I didn't add any seasoning. I thought mine was perfect, and my beef was tender at about 25 minutes. Optionally, you can add some sliced cheese or grated cheese to this. I had some smoked provolone, but you could use mozzarella. And if you don't have fresh cheese to add, I would refresh some Thrivalist mozzarella, maybe a cup of mozzarella and 5 or 6 tablespoons of water. Let that refresh and get soft and add that to the top and let it melt. You will definitely not regret adding cheese to the top of this. It's fantastic. So you can turn off your heat, let it stand for about 5 minutes. It helps the sauce to thicken up. All right, I'm going to show you 2 different ways you can serve this. First, I'll show you over buttered noodles. And so this is the idea of a Philly cheesesteak casserole. it is served over something like rice or mashed potatoes or buttered noodles or any low carb alternatives to those. And let me tell you what, that gravy or that sauce that it's in, that is magical. It's so delicious. So it's a really good idea to pour some of that extra sauce over those noodles. And this is what your dish will look like. Isn't that gorgeous? Just look at those peppers and that beef, that yummy melted cheese, and that delicious sauce or gravy. It's super yummy, y'all. My friend Wendy sent me a picture of her low carb cauli mash, and it looked so good. I think this would be great on some cauli mash. I think you could also eat this by itself too. You don't really have to put it over anything if you don't want to. All right, so that was a fantastic bite right there. This is a delicious meal. I do not think you'll be disappointed if you try this recipe. I mean, if you like the flavors of Philly cheesesteak and if you like peppers and onions and that kind of thing, I think you'll really like it. All right, the second way to serve this would be over a toasted hoagie roll or a toasted bun. I have seen low carb bread that I think you could toast up and put this on. Also, a low carb tortilla, if you grilled that and heated that up, I think you could eat this kind of burrito style on a low carb tortilla. That would be fantastic. But if you're going to serve this on some sort of bread or toast, I do suggest kind of straining off a little bit of that sauce so it doesn't get too soggy. I realized I had made that upside down accidentally, so get that right side up and show you. I actually preferred the sandwich to the casserole in this one. I just thought it was so tasty. All right, up next, I've got some Italian chicken stew. And this recipe is based on something that my mom used to do. She would kind of just try to clean out the fridge, take just leftovers, a little bit of this, a handful of that, a half a cup of this, and put it together, combine it with some yummy sauces, and she just had a knack for it. Every time she made this, it was a little bit different than the time before, but every time it was delicious. I'm going to start with a quart-sized jar because these ingredients will definitely fill it up, and it'll give you at least 3 good-sized servings here, possibly 4 depending on what you serve it with. You're going to need to start with about 1.5 cups of our chicken slices down in the bottom. Now, I like the chunk of chicken that is in the chicken slices here for this stew, but if you'll notice, I didn't have that much meat. I just ran out, and I didn't want to open another can, so I'll supplement it with some rotisserie chicken at the end of cooking. You'll need 1/3 cup of heavy cream powder. I get that off of Amazon. It's Anthony's brand. And then about 1/2 cup of zucchini. I added more zucchini here to compensate for the lack of chicken. And then in go some tomato dices. These flavors work really well together. I'm adding some instant pinto beans. Thrivalist doesn't even sell those anymore. You could use our instant black beans. I'm adding some potato dices and some celery. And again, this is just kind of mimicking what my mom used to put in hers. I'm adding some kale. You could use spinach or broccoli there. In go about 3 tablespoons of carrots. You don't want to do too many because they will kind of take over the dish. I'm only adding 1/4 cup of macaroni noodles. You can use any kind of pasta. You could also increase that amount if that's what you want, or leave it out altogether. In go some chopped onions and some garlic. You can probably tell that this is going to taste really good just by those ingredients already. So you might give your jar a shimmy, shake, and pat it down. Make a little bit of room at the top. I'm putting 3 tablespoons of our Thrivalist tomato sauce. You could also substitute that with some tomato powder and just add extra Italian seasonings. Here are the seasonings I use to make this broth taste amazing. I have freeze-dried Italian seasoning. I've got chicken bouillon, some ranch seasoning. If you don't like that, just sub it with some onion powder and garlic powder, some salt and pepper, and then I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of the freeze-dried Parmesan cheese. If you don't have that, don't worry. You can add some fresh Parm as you cook this towards the end of cooking. I have seen Parmesan cheese powder on Amazon. from Judy's brand, and there's probably other brands as well. I haven't actually tried it, so if y'all have tried it, please let me know in the comments what you think. You might pat it down and go ahead and put in an oxygen absorber. I usually use oxygen absorbers if my meals are going to sit on the shelf for a long time. You could also vacuum seal this. I mean, you need to use your best judgment for your food storage. This is what I do, but you decide what you want to do. All right, so this is the jar that you could keep stored on your pantry shelf. I think it's beautiful, and this makes a fantastic gift because it's so easy to prepare. It's super delicious. This is a just add water recipe, so y'all, it couldn't be easier here. You'll need to get out a large soup pot and then just empty the contents of your jar into the soup pot. And then you're gonna need to add about 7 cups of water. I started with 6 and then I added a 7th. And then you'll just need to give this a good stir. Remember, you've got some powders there that will need to be incorporated with that water. You just want to stir it, make sure there's no big clumps of powder. So get on your heat, probably a medium high. You want to bring this to a boil. And every once in a while, you'll just need to come along and give it a stir. You've got some pasta in there and some Parmesan cheese, and as that heats up, it'll tend to want to stick to the bottom of your pot. So just make sure you stir it every once in a while. Once you achieve a boil, you can turn down your heat to probably a medium. You do want to maintain a boil, but you can turn that temperature down some, and then you'll just need to simmer this for about 20 minutes. It's super easy. Come along every once in a while and give it a stir. Okay, and then towards the end of cooking time, that's when I added some extra rotisserie chicken there. And y'all, feel free to do that anytime to any of my recipes. If you don't have freeze-dried meat and you have rotisserie chicken, just use that instead. You can add fresh food and combine it with the freeze-dried food when you cook it, and it combines beautifully. It works out great. All right, now's a good time to give your stew a taste. You're going to test for tenderness. I'm testing the pinto bean to make sure that that is completely tender, because that will take the longest to cook. I decided it needed some heat, some spice, so I added both cayenne pepper and red pepper flakes to give it a little kick. And I'm telling you what, I'm so glad I did, because that was amazing. I'm going to put that in the show notes below as an optional ingredient, because I really do think it's better with a little bit of a kick. So I tasted that again, and to me that was perfect. I loved the flavor from this broth. And y'all know me, I'm going to add additional heavy cream. If I have it, I usually add it because I just think it's fantastic. Of course, it's optional, and if you don't have heavy cream to add, just leave it out. It's great without it. I promise it's going to be super good either way. All right, so now it's ready. It's ready to serve. I think I let this sit for probably another 5 minutes while I was getting out my dishes and kind of messing with the camera. And even in that amount of time, it thickened up quite a bit. If you'll notice, it's nice and thick. This is a delicious stew. Now it's ready to serve up. You can top this however you like it. You might put some Parmesan on there. I just gave it a sprinkling of my scallions that I have still growing out back in my container garden somehow. We've had freezing temperatures all week, and I still have those scallions growing. But anyway, isn't that a beautiful stew? I just love the way this looks. I love the chunkiness of the vegetables. I love it that you can really taste each individual ingredient. The broth is, it's fantastic. Cozy and comforting and warm and perfect for this time of year. This is just a great base recipe for you to make a yummy Italian, I'm calling it an Italian stew because it has some Italian flavors in it, but it's just a delicious stew. And I think y'all are going to really like this one. I hope you give it a try. All right, last but not least, I've got a recipe for a supper helper. I'm going to make a tuna casserole with it by adding a can of tuna whenever I make this. You could add a can of chicken or salmon, whatever you like here. Or you could add some freeze-dried meat to the jar and just make it like that instead. This is what I like to call a supper helper mix. And it's very similar to like a tuna helper or a hamburger helper, those box things that you can get at the grocery store. And all you have to do is add a couple cans of tuna or some leftover hamburger meat to it, or a can of chicken, or whatever it is you like. This is just really nostalgic for me. It very much so reminds me of 1984. We're living in Louisiana. My mom says, Kareth, it's your turn to cook for the family for tonight. And I remember grabbing these boxes of tuna helper, hamburger helper, or something like that, and cooking for my family. Of course, this is going to be a lot better because I have good ingredients I'm going to put in here. I'm going to make it taste really yummy. I can customize the flavors, and then there's no strange ingredients. It does very much taste like something that would remind you of a tuna helper from back in the day. You can add whatever seasonings you like. All I'm doing here is adding the cheese sauce mix, the bechamel sauce mix, some instant milk powder. I've got chicken bouillon, and then some other seasonings. That's a little bit of green onion. You could use chopped onions. I'm going to add some parsley. If you like a thicker sauce, you could also add some cornstarch to this. It's totally up to you. This is really customizable. I'm just putting like a quarter of a teaspoon of paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, and pepper in here. But I mean, you could go to town and add whatever seasonings you want. If you want to make this like a taco tuna night or something like that, you could substitute taco seasoning. So it's up to you. You can pair this with whatever protein you like. I'm going to use a big old can of tuna. I have a 12-ounce can of tuna that I'm going to drain and rinse there. You could use canned chicken. You could use some leftover hamburger meat that you've cooked last night or something like that. At the top of the jar, there's a little bit of extra room, and you can either add some vegetables there like zucchini or broccoli. You could add freeze-dried meat. I just added some more noodles because I just wanted to keep it really plain and simple, but I mean, it's totally up to you. So this is another recipe that you could make in advance, and if you like it, you can make several of them at a time and then have this supper helper on your pantry shelf, and then dinner is just super quick and easy. All I've done here is I've gotten out a large skillet. I've added the contents of that jar as well as 3 cups of water. And then you're just gonna, heat this up, bring it to a boil, add your canned meat or whatever protein you want to put in there, and then just let it bubble away for probably somewhere close to 15 minutes, just until your pasta is cooked all the way through. I have those Skinner brand dumplings in there, but you could use elbow macaronis, you could use shells, bow ties, like whatever pasta you like. I use this one because this is what reminds me of that tuna helper back when I was in middle school. But it's totally up to you. Use whatever pasta you like. I like to add the meat into it because I like that flavor from the sauce to permeate the meat. You could hold off and then add the meat at the very end if that's what you prefer. I cook this with the lid on for about 5 minutes, and then I take the lid off and let it cook the rest of the way uncovered. And that's just because I wanted some of that water to evaporate off and for the sauce to thicken. So if you leave the lid off, it will thicken up a little bit better. And this is the consistency that I was talking about earlier. If you like your tuna helper or hamburger helper or whatever this is for you, if you want this a little thicker, you can add some cornstarch to the mix to start with. But keep in mind, after you pull this off the heat, the sauce will thicken up a bit on its own, just because the bechamel sauce and the cheese sauce mix, they both have cornstarch in them already. Cook this until your noodles are tender, give it a taste, adjust your seasonings, add whatever you want to it. You can add some heavy cream to that or half and half if you want to. I didn't, I just thought it was great the way it was. I sprinkled this with some scallions and some fresh parsley, and then to me, it was perfect. That right there is a nostalgic meal. It tastes so much like what I remember those meals in my middle school years tasting like. I think it's so good. It's creamy, it's cheesy, the noodles are nice and soft. It's easy as can be because you saw what I did there. I mean, it was like super simple. It's ready in like 15 minutes. And it's just, one of those easy, nostalgic meals. So now you've got 5 more recipes for meals that you could easily whip up in an emergency, and these will actually taste good. I hope these recipes are helpful to you as you build up your pantry. I've been sharing my recipes on YouTube for going on 4 years now, and my hope is that my videos are a resource for you. There's lots of people out there that give great advice on how to be well prepared, and I'm just one of the many tools in the box, so to speak. So yeah, I hope it's helpful to you. And if you benefit from my content, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. If you prefer to have my recipes in cookbook form, I have them available for purchase. The paperbacks are available on Amazon. And if you like a more affordable digital version, those are on my website. And I will link to all of this below down in the show notes. That's also where I will link to all of the original videos from today, and you can find the recipes written down in the description boxes of the original videos. All right, I like to end my videos with a scripture verse of the day, Luke 16:10, and it reads, "He who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much, and he who is unrighteous in a very little thing is unrighteous also in much." Boy, that verse hit hard today. I had to really think about that. And I think, wow, it's just so convicting. Lord, help me to be faithful in the little things and in much. All right, guys, I pray y'all have a blessed day, a wonderful week. And until next time, y'all take care and keep thriving.